Hello, hello again. We are back at Quoth the Raven, Lewis Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Raven, 30-year veteran writer, illustrator, and editor of comic, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And we are here with another question and answer short. Today's question is from Chris in Georgia. He asks, what do you think is or are the major differences between the fandom of the 1970s and 1980s and the fandom of today? It seems that not only were the products better in the past, but the fandom was much more tolerant and happy with the materials. Am I making sense? Did I explain it, meaning the question, well enough? Well, yes, Chris did. I know where you're coming from. And let's talk about that for a minute. As soon as my cat stops having a conniption fit. Where are you, you little monster? Anyway, here he comes. Anyway, the key differences between the fandom of yesteryear, shall we say, the 60s through the 80s and modern times, I'd say in the last 30 years, is predominantly technology and more specifically the internet, I think. Back in the day, you didn't have the same herd mentality, as it were. You were very limited to the number of people that had the same interests as you. And it's usually a smaller collection, more manageable, and you had conversations one-on-one or maybe 3 or 4 people at a time, whether that was just in your little group of people at the lunch table at school or at the comic shop or wherever you were. And maybe before that, if you didn't have that, you might meet someone through the letter columns of your favorite comic. You read someone's book or read their letter, and you liked what they had to say, and maybe you wrote them a letter and became friends that way. But in the late 80s, early 90s, as the beginnings of what became known as the internet structure, with the Usenet boards and AOL message boards, and it became more popularized for the general population to own computers and be involved in the internet. More and more people became involved, and your conversations changed. The way conversation structures changed. A conversation that I could be having with you at a comic shop, 2 or 3 people, we get to the conversation, you wouldn't have 5 or 6 people interjecting themselves 30 minutes into the conversation because they didn't agree with something you said 35 minutes ago because they weren't physically there and they didn't hear it. Where with the internet, it's always there. It's always in print, or it's always, there's a historical record, I guess you could say. And that historical record has both its benefits and its disadvantages. The major disadvantage is that anything you say can and will be held against you in the court of public opinion. And as a result, something that you may have said 15 years ago gets dredged up by some jerk who wants to pick a fight with you and, play mind games with you. And if that was going on in real life, in a conversation in a comic shop, everybody would look at that person with disdain and disgust and say, get the hell out of here. You're not even worthy of, that person would be dismissed. Whereas instead, now, today's culture, they take everything out of context and try and spin their own context into it and create false narratives. And that has, that's the major difference, I think. And I think that's made both fandom and the creatives a lot more jaded and a lot more defensive than we were back in the more innocent times, I guess you could say. And at the same time, things were not innocent back then either. There was a lot of stuff that we hear a lot about today between creators not necessarily being the best people in the world, Well, the creators of the 70s and 80s, there's a lot of darkness going on back behind the scenes over there. Back then, too, it just wasn't as prominently known about, I guess you could say. And it's not that it wasn't known about. If you were in certain circles of fandom, if you had some insight with friends among the creative community, you knew which editors were jerks. You knew which editors were sexually harassing the females. You knew it got the word got around. It just wasn't brought out to the nature of how it's been brought out in more modern time. Now, why wasn't that done? Mostly because the number of people who really knew about it was a much smaller group of people, and the people that were complaining about it was being dismissed by the larger group of people in that group. Now we got a larger number of people learning about it, often in retrospect, and now they're saying, well, why wasn't this happening? Well, it was a different culture, different time. I'm not saying it was right. I'm not saying it was acceptable behavior. We should condemn that behavior, past and present, but at the same time, um, it's more of a don't keep the perpetual chip on your shoulder, I guess, for that sort of thing in a way. But unless you want to say people that are modern day perpetrators, I guess, yes, you want to be critical of them and not have them be in your tribe, so to speak, as Ted Davies likes to call it, the tribe. Um, I think that's a good word for it. But that is a major difference, I think. Um, and the other difference is through the last 30 years in modern technology, through video, through YouTube channel, through the internet, saying goes. And when you realize that it's not all sunshine and rainbows and that there are people who get in fights, creative differences with editorial and with each other, and it's not all everybody holding hands together singing kumbaya, you realize that maybe these books aren't these wonderful things that we all just love doing. It's just, for some of us, it's just a job that we take on for the capital, and then that it kind of ruins your perspective and enjoyment of the book as a result. Because if they're not enjoying making the book, I'm not going to enjoy reading the book. And fandom needs to learn that just because the comic was compromised creatively in some ways behind the scenes doesn't make it automatically a bad book or that you shouldn't enjoy the book. You just need to understand that, well, if the creators aren't getting along and they part ways, even if you liked it or didn't like it, that's their business and not necessarily ours as readers. I hope I'm back. I don't know what's going on other than my internet's kind of crappy again. Again, I apologize. Um, Hopefully we're back. I hope I'm back. I don't know what's going on other than my internet's kind of crap. Apologize for that. Where was I? Got lost. Okay. The like I said, it's mostly just the internet changing and the technology. I think that's caused the differences between the old guard and new guard fandom. And if we learn to use the technology correctly, I guess you could say, and not use it for the dark side, I think a lot more people would enjoy it a little bit more often. So I hope that answers your question, Chris. And again, I'm sorry everyone for the internet interruption. Um, I lost my train of thought, and I don't know where I was going to go now, unfortunately. But I think that's good enough for today. Um, if you have a question, would you like to ask? Go to quote the Raven LBR72 at gmail.com. And I'll do my best to answer for you. And the subject should be QTR Q&A. We're still kind of stuck here. Am I having that same problem again? I hope not. Okay. If you like this video or you think others might, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get content from my channel. As always, I thank you for watching and for your support. If you have want to reach out to me in social media, I'm available at Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter at LewisBrightRave2. You can see some more of my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You've been watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven, exclusively on YouTube. Again, if you have want to ask me a question or make comments, you want to commission me for artwork, Quoth the Raven LBR72 at gmail.com is the address to reach out to me at. If I don't get back to you within a day or two, try Lewis Bright Raven at yahoo.com as the backup address. We'll see you next time. Have a good day.